The thunderous crack of a gunshot echoed through the dusty streets of Redemption Creek as Olivia Armstrong stepped off the stagecoach, her heart pounding against her ribs like a wild Mustang. It was 1875, and the West was still as untamed as the wind that whipped her chestnut hair across her face. She clutched her worn leather satchel tighter, watching the commotion unfold outside the saloon, where a man with a badge was attempting to restore order. Olivia had traveled from Boston with nothing but $20 to her name, a teaching certificate, and a letter from a cousin who'd since passed on. The letter promised opportunity in this frontier town, but standing on the unpaved main street with the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. "Madam, you might want to find shelter," a deep voice said behind her. "Town ain't always this rowdy, but when it is, it ain't no place for a lady." Turning, Olivia found herself facing a tall man with eyes the color of a summer storm. His face was bronzed by the sun, partially shadowed by the brim of his worn Stetson. A star-shaped badge glinted on his chest, the town marshal. "I'm Nicholas Nash," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "Town marshal, you look a bit lost." "Olivia Armstrong," she replied, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. "I've come to take the teaching position." The marshal's eyes widened. "Teaching position? Madam, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but our schoolhouse burned down 3 weeks ago. Ain't nobody sent word to cancel the position." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. She had traveled over 2,000 miles for nothing. "No," she whispered. "No one sent word." Nicholas Nash's weathered face softened. "Look, there's a boarding house down the street. Mrs. Wilkins is a good woman. Get yourself a room for the night and we can figure things out tomorrow." Olivia nodded numbly, hefting her bag. But before she could take a step, another gunshot rang out and the marshal cursed under his breath. "Damn O'Malley's," he muttered. "Stay here." He strode toward the saloon, hand hovering over his holstered Colt. Olivia, despite his instruction, found herself following at a distance. The doors of the Golden Nugget saloon swung open as 2 men were tossed unceremoniously into the street. "And stay out," bellowed a mountain of a man standing in the doorway. Nicholas approached the sprawled men. "Pete, Jimmy, what I tell you about causing trouble?" "Wasn't us, Marshal," the one called Pete slurred. "Was that new fella, the one calling himself a cowboy?" Olivia watched as Nicholas entered the saloon and curiosity got the better of her. She climbed the steps and peered through the swinging doors. The scene inside was like nothing she'd witnessed in proper Boston society: men gambling at tables, women in scandalously short dresses serving drinks, and the pungent smell of whiskey and tobacco hanging thick in the air. In the center of the room stood Nicholas, facing a lean man dressed in black from his hat to his boots. The only splash of color was the red bandana tied around his neck. "Don't recall seeing you around these parts," Nicholas said, his voice carrying across the now quiet room. The stranger's lips quirked into a half-smile. "Just passing through. Name's Nathan Novak." "Well, Mr. Novak, in Redemption Creek we settled disputes with words first, guns last." Nathan shrugged. "Man called me a cheat. I encouraged him to reconsider." "By pulling your gun?" "By suggesting he look closer at his cards." The tension in the room was palpable, and Olivia found herself holding her breath. These 2 men were like opposing forces: Nicholas with his steadfast authority, and Nathan with his dangerous nonchalance. "Next time," Nicholas said, "find me before things escalate." Nathan nodded once, then his eyes flicked to the doorway where Olivia stood. His gaze, sharp and assessing, made her step back instinctively. Something about him unsettled her, not fear exactly, but a distinct awareness that he was a man who lived by his own code. "New in town?" Nathan asked, addressing her directly, Before Olivia could answer, Nicholas turned and spotted her. His face darkened. "Miss Armstrong, I believe I told you to head to the boarding house." She faltered. "I wasn't sure of the direction." Nathan's smile widened. "I'd be happy to escort the lady." "That won't be necessary," Nicholas cut in. "Miss Armstrong is our new teacher, or was supposed to be before our schoolhouse burned down." "A teacher?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Long way from home, aren't you?" Olivia lifted her chin. "Home is where one makes it, Mr. Novak." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps. He tipped his hat to her. "Indeed it is." Nicholas took Olivia's elbow. "Come on, I'll show you to Mrs. Wilkins's place myself." As they left the saloon, Olivia couldn't help glancing back. Nathan was watching them go, that same inscrutable expression on his face. She had a feeling their paths would cross again. Mrs. Wilkins was indeed a kind woman, plump and maternal with graying hair tucked into a neat bun. She fussed over Olivia, lamenting her long journey and the unfortunate news about the schoolhouse. "Don't you worry, dear," she said as she showed Olivia to a small but clean room on the second floor. "God doesn't close a door without opening a window." That night, lying in an unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of a town settling down for the evening, Olivia wondered what window might possibly open for her now. Morning brought no clarity, but it did bring an invitation to breakfast with Mrs. Wilkins and her other boarders, two elderly sisters who owned the town's only dressmaking shop, and a young man who worked at the telegraph office. "So you're a teacher?" one of the sisters, Harriet, asked over eggs and bacon. "What subjects?" "All of them," Olivia replied with a small smile. "Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, some basic sciences." "Shame about the schoolhouse," Mrs. Wilkins sighed. "Those children need education. Most of them can barely write their names." The young man from the telegraph office, Thomas, he'd introduced himself, spoke up. "Town council's been talking about rebuilding, but money's tight since the mine reduced operations." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Mrs. Wilkins excused herself and returned moments later with Nicholas Nash. "Morning, ladies." Thomas, he nodded to each of them. "Miss Armstrong, I was wondering if I might have a word." Olivia followed him to the small front parlor. The morning light caught the silver streaks in his light brown hair, and she noticed for the first time that he couldn't be much older than 30. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said. "The town does need a teacher, and the children have been running wild since Miss Perkins left last fall." Hope flickered in Olivia's chest. "Are you saying there might still be a position for me?" "Possibly. The town hall has a large room we could use temporarily while the schoolhouse is being rebuilt. Pay wouldn't be much at first, but—" "I'll take it," Olivia said quickly, then flushed at her eagerness. "That is, I'd be very grateful for the opportunity." A rare smile crossed Nicholas's face, softening his stern features. "I'll speak to the mayor today. In the meantime, I thought you might want to see the town in daylight, get your bearings." The tour of Redemption Creek took less than an hour. The town consisted of one main street with a few side alleys, boasting the essentials of frontier life: general store, blacksmith, doctor's office, 2 saloons, a small church, and the town hall, which also housed the jail. Nicholas pointed out the charred remains of what had been the schoolhouse, a simple one-room building now reduced to a blackened skeleton. "How did it happen?" Olivia asked, surveying the damage. Nicholas's expression darkened. "Lightning strike during a storm, or so most folks believe." "You don't," he hesitated. "There are some in town who don't value education much, prefer their children working instead of learning." As they turned to leave, Olivia spotted a figure approaching on horseback, the lean silhouette of Nathan Novak. His black horse matched his attire, creating an imposing picture as he drew closer. "Marshal," he nodded to Nicholas, then turned to Olivia with that same half-smile. "Miss Armstrong, settling in, Mr. Novak," she acknowledged. "Yes, thank you." "Thought you were passing through," Nicholas said, his tone cooler than the morning air. Nathan shrugged. "Found a reason to stay a while. Seems there might be work for a man with my skills." "And what skills would those be?" Nicholas asked. "Depends on who's asking." Nathan's eyes never left Olivia's face. "I hear you're to be the new teacher. Brave undertaking in a town like this." "I believe education is essential, Mr. Novak, regardless of location." He chuckled, a low sound that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Admirable conviction. If you need any help settling in, I'm staying at the Rusty Spur." "Miss Armstrong has all the help she needs," Nicholas interrupted. Nathan nodded, an amused glint in his eye. "Of course. Good day, Miss Armstrong. Marshal." He rode on, leaving Olivia with the distinct impression that there was more to Nathan Novak than met the eye. The way Nicholas watched him go, tension evident in his jaw, confirmed her suspicion. "You don't trust him," she observed. Nicholas turned to her, his expression guarded. "Men like that bring trouble, Miss Armstrong. Best to keep your distance." But as they walked back toward the town center, Olivia found herself wondering about the mysterious cowboy and what had really brought him to Redemption Creek. The next week passed in a flurry of activity. The mayor approved the use of the town hall for temporary schooling, and Olivia found herself busy preparing for her first class. Word spread quickly, and by the time Monday arrived, she had a list of 28 children ranging from 6 to 16 years of age. The town hall room was sparse, with benches hastily constructed by the blacksmith and his apprentice, but Olivia made do. She hung a map of the United States on one wall, set up a small chalkboard, and arranged her few books on a shelf. On Monday morning, she stood nervously at the front of the room as children filed in, their parents lingering at the doorway with expressions ranging from hopeful to skeptical. "Good morning," she began when everyone had settled. "I'm Miss Armstrong, and I'll be your teacher." A small girl in the front row raised her hand immediately. "Miss, is it true you're from back east?" "Yes, I'm from Boston." "Why'd you come here?" asked an older boy from the back. "Ain't nothing in Redemption Creek worth coming for." Olivia smiled. "Sometimes we go places because we're needed there, not because of what the place can give us." The boy looked unconvinced, but he didn't argue further. Olivia launched into her first lesson, assessing the varied education levels of her students. Some of the older children could barely read, while a few of the younger ones showed surprising aptitude. By midday, Olivia was exhausted but exhilarated. During the lunch break, as children scattered to eat their packed meals, she stepped outside for fresh air. "Impressive," a voice said from the shade of a nearby tree. Nathan Novak pushed away from the trunk he'd been leaning against, approaching with that casual grace that seemed to define him. "Mr. Novak," Olivia greeted, surprised. "Have you been watching my class?" "Just passing by," he said, though his timing seemed too perfect to be coincidental. "Those children respect you already." "It's too soon to tell," she demurred, "but they seem eager to learn. Most folks are when given the chance." He studied her face. "You're good at this." The compliment flustered her. "Thank you. What brings you to town hall?" "More trouble to discuss with Marshal Nash." A smile tugged at his lips. "No trouble today. Actually, I've been hired to help rebuild the schoolhouse." This surprised her. "You're a carpenter, among other things." He gestured toward the burned building down the street. "Work starts tomorrow. Thought you might want to know, seeing as you'll be teaching there once it's done." "That's wonderful news," Olivia said sincerely. "The children deserve a proper school." "And you deserve better than that cramped town hall." He stepped closer, and Olivia caught the scent of leather and something woodsy. Perhaps you could tell me what you'd like to see in the new building, special features that might make teaching easier. His consideration was unexpected. Yes, I'd like that. Though I doubt the town budget will allow for much beyond the basics. You'd be surprised what can be managed with the right skills. Nathan tipped his hat. I'll let you get back to your students, Miss Armstrong. Perhaps we could discuss the schoolhouse plans over dinner sometime. Before Olivia could formulate a response to what was clearly an invitation, a stern voice interrupted. Miss Armstrong, I was looking for you. Nicholas Nash approached, his expression hardening when he saw Nathan. The two men regarded each other with barely concealed animosity. Marshal, Nathan acknowledged with a slight nod. Just informing Miss Armstrong about the schoolhouse reconstruction. I heard the council hired you, Nicholas said, his tone neutral but his eyes wary. Didn't know carpentry was one of your skills. A man picks up many trades on the frontier, Nathan replied easily. I'll leave you two to your business. As he walked away, Nicholas turned to Olivia. Be careful around him. You keep warning me, but you never say why, she challenged. What exactly has Mr. Novak done to earn such suspicion? Nicholas hesitated. It's not what he's done. It's what men like him are capable of. I've been a marshal for 8 years, Miss Armstrong. I know trouble when I see it. Perhaps you're judging too harshly, Olivia suggested. He seems genuinely interested in helping rebuild the school. For the right price, Nicholas countered. Just promise me you'll be cautious. His concern seemed genuine, and Olivia found herself touched by it. I can take care of myself, Marshal Nash, but I appreciate your concern. The rest of the school day passed without incident, and as Olivia walked back to the boarding house that evening, she found her thoughts drifting between the two men who had so unexpectedly entered her life. Nicholas Nash with his steadfast dedication to order and protection, and Nathan Novak with his air of mystery and unexpected consideration. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the approaching riders until they were almost upon her. 3 men on horseback, dusty from the trail and with hard eyes that assessed her in a way that made her skin crawl. Well, well, the leader said, a man with a scar running from his eye to his jaw. You must be the new schoolmarm everyone's talking about. Olivia straightened her spine. Good evening, gentlemen. If you'll excuse me, I'm headed home. The man nudged his horse closer, blocking her path. Don't be in such a hurry, madam. We're just being neighborly. Leave the lady alone, Reese. The voice came from behind her Nathan, his hand resting casually on the gun at his hip. The man called Reese's expression changed, a flicker of recognition and wariness crossing his features. Novak, didn't know you had business in Redemption Creek. I do now, Nathan replied coolly. Move along. A tense moment passed, then Reese spat on the ground. Come on, boys, plenty more friendly folks in this town. They rode off, and Olivia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you. Nathan's gaze followed the riders. Reese Dalton, not a man you want to encounter alone. You know him. Our paths have crossed. He offered his arm. May I walk you home? Olivia hesitated only briefly before accepting. How did you happen to be here at just the right moment? A ghost of a smile played on his lips. Perhaps I was keeping an eye on you. Why would you do that? Same reason Nash does, though he'd never admit we share any motives. When Olivia looked puzzled, he elaborated. This town needs a teacher, Miss Armstrong, and some folks might not be happy about that. You mean the schoolhouse fire wasn't an accident? Nathan's expression grew serious. Let's just say there are powerful interests in Redemption Creek that prefer an uneducated workforce. Easier to control people who can't read contracts or calculate their own wages. This revelation troubled Olivia deeply. Is that why Marshal Nash is suspicious of you? He thinks you work for these interests." A dry laugh escaped him. "No, Nash and I have history from before he pinned on that badge." They reached the boarding house and Nathan released her arm. "Good evening, Miss Armstrong." "Mr. Novak," she said, suddenly reluctant to end their conversation. "About your offer to discuss the schoolhouse plans." His eyes lit with interest. "Yes, perhaps tomorrow after school we could meet at the site." "I'll be there," he promised, tipping his hat before melting into the gathering twilight. Mrs. Wilkins was waiting inside, a knowing look on her face. "Was that Nathan Novak I saw escorting you home? He happened to be passing by," Olivia explained, trying to sound casual. Mrs. Wilkins busied herself with setting the table for dinner. "Handsome man, if a bit mysterious. They say he rode with Quantrill's raiders during the war." Olivia frowned. The Confederate guerrilla forces had been known for their brutality. "Surely that's just rumor." "Perhaps. But in these parts a man's past has a way of following him." Mrs. Wilkins paused. "Marshal Nash came by earlier looking for you, said to be careful walking home alone." Olivia felt a flush creep up her neck. "He's very conscientious about his duties." "Is that what we're calling it, Mrs.?" Wilkins smiled knowingly. "Two handsome men taking an interest in our new teacher. My. It's nothing like that," Olivia protested, though the idea sent an unexpected flutter through her stomach. The next day after school, Olivia made her way to the burned schoolhouse. Workers had already begun clearing debris, and in the center of the activity stood Nathan, directing men with the confidence of someone who clearly knew what he was doing. He spotted her and immediately came over, wiping his hands on a bandana. "Miss Armstrong, right on time." For the next hour, they walked the perimeter of what would become the new schoolhouse. Nathan listened attentively as Olivia described her vision: large windows for natural light, bookshelves built into the walls, enough space for desks to be arranged in groups rather than rows. "Ambitious," he commented when she finished, "but doable." "Even with the town's limited budget?" she asked skeptically. Nathan's eyes twinkled. "Let me worry about that part. I have a way of finding resources where others see none." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues, they sat on a stack of lumber, continuing their conversation. Olivia found Nathan surprisingly easy to talk to, his insights thoughtful and often unexpected. "How does a man like you learn carpentry?" she asked. "You don't strike me as someone who apprenticed in a traditional manner," he chuckled. "My father built houses back in Missouri. I learned from him before." His expression clouded briefly. "Before the war changed everything." Mrs. Wilkins mentioned something about Quantrill's raiders. Olivia ventured cautiously. Nathan's face hardened. "People talk, doesn't make it true." "I didn't mean to pry," he sighed, his gaze distant. "War makes men do things they wouldn't otherwise consider." "I was 17 when it started, 21 when it ended. Felt like a lifetime." Olivia sensed there was much more to his story, but she didn't press. Everyone in the West seemed to be running from something or someone. "What about you?" he asked, changing the subject. "What brings a refined Boston lady to the wilds of Colorado territory?" "Adventure, I suppose," she replied, then laughed at his skeptical look. "Is that so hard to believe? For most Eastern ladies, yes, for you." He studied her face. "Perhaps not." The intensity of his gaze made her heart quicken. "My father was a professor. After he died, there seemed little reason to stay. My mother passed when I was young and I have no siblings." "So you packed up and headed west. Brave. Or foolish," she added with a self-deprecating smile. "There's a fine line between the two," he agreed. "But I'd say you landed on the right side of it." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Nicholas Nash, who approached with purpose in his stride. "Evening," he greeted, his eyes taking in their casual seating arrangement with obvious disapproval. "Miss Armstrong, I stopped by the school, but you'd already left. Mr. Novak and I were discussing plans for the new schoolhouse," she explained, standing. "Indeed." Nicholas's tone was cool. "Actually, I came to warn you both. Reese Dalton and his men are causing trouble at the Golden Nugget. Seems they're asking questions about you, Novak." Nathan tensed almost imperceptibly. "Is that so? Thought you should know, considering your acquaintance with them." The two men stared at each other, some unspoken communication passing between them that Olivia couldn't decipher. "I should get back to the boarding house," she said, breaking the tense silence. "It's nearly dinner time." "I'll escort you," both men said simultaneously, then glared at each other. "That's very kind, but I can manage," Olivia insisted, uncomfortable with the sudden competition. "It's still daylight and the street is busy with people." Nathan nodded, respecting her decision. "Until tomorrow, Miss Armstrong." "Actually," Nicholas interjected, "I was hoping to speak with Miss Armstrong about a matter concerning the school. If you'll excuse us, Novak." Irritation flashed across Nathan's face, but he stepped back with a slight bow. "Of course. Good evening." As they walked toward town, Olivia couldn't help but feel annoyed at Nicholas's interruption. Was there really something about the school you needed to discuss, or was that merely a pretext? Nicholas had the grace to look slightly abashed. "There is a matter, yes, but I could have addressed it tomorrow." "Then why the urgency now?" He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Because I don't trust Novak and I don't like seeing you alone with him." "That's not your decision to make, Marshal," Olivia said firmly. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of choosing my own company. You don't know him like I do." "Then enlighten me," she challenged. "What exactly is your history with Nathan Novak?" Nicholas hesitated, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he sighed. "We served together under General Sheridan." This surprised Olivia. "You fought together in the war?" "Yes, and after." His voice lowered. "We were scouts tracking renegade bands, Novak. He had a reputation for efficiency, some called it brutality." "That was war," Olivia pointed out. "This was after. When peace was supposedly won." Nicholas's eyes darkened with memory. "There was an incident, a Cheyenne camp, women and children." Olivia's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Novak follows orders without questioning them, and he's very good at what he does." Nicholas's voice was grim. "And now he's here in my town, building your schoolhouse, and men who know him are asking questions about him." "You think he's in some kind of trouble?" "I think trouble follows men like him," Nicholas corrected. "And I don't want to see you caught in the crossfire." Olivia processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the man she'd been getting to know. "People change, Marshal. The war left scars on everyone." "Some scars run deeper than others," he said quietly. "Just be careful. That's all I'm asking." They resumed walking, a contemplative silence between them. When they reached the boarding house, Nicholas cleared his throat. "The actual school matter I wanted to discuss, the town council has approved funds for books and supplies. I thought perhaps you might want to join me on a trip to Denver next week to select them. The stagecoach runs Wednesday and returns Saturday." The invitation caught Olivia off guard. "That's very thoughtful." "It's practical," he said, though the slight flush on his cheeks suggested otherwise. "You know what the students need better than anyone." "Then I accept. Thank you, Marshal Nash." "Nicholas," he corrected. "If we're to be traveling companions, I think first names would be appropriate." Olivia smiled. "Nicholas, then, and I'm Olivia." "Good night, Olivia," he said, her name sounding different, almost intimate in his deep voice. As she watched him walk away, Olivia was struck by the complexity of her situation. Two men, each warning her about the other, each stirring feelings she hadn't expected to encounter in Redemption Creek. That night, she lay awake long after the house had grown quiet, her thoughts a tangled mess of contradictions. Nathan with his mysterious past and unexpected gentleness. Nicholas with his steadfast protection and hidden depths. Both men carried the weight of the war, of violence and loss, yet both showed glimpses of something more, something worth discovering. She drifted off to sleep with the uneasy feeling that choosing to come west had set her on a path more complicated and dangerous than she could have imagined. The next morning brought rain, a rare occurrence in the typically arid region. Olivia hurried to school, her shawl providing little protection against the downpour. The children arrived damp and excited by the unusual weather, making it challenging to maintain order in the classroom. By midday, the rain had stopped, but dark clouds still loomed overhead. Olivia dismissed the children for lunch, grateful for the brief respite. She was organizing papers at her makeshift desk when a shadow fell across the doorway. "Productive morning?" Nathan asked, stepping into the room. Water dripped from his hat and coat, evidence that he'd been caught in the downpour. The children were rather energetic, Olivia admitted. "Rain is apparently a cause for celebration here." "Rare enough to be," he agreed. "Thought you might want to see how the schoolhouse is progressing." "We've laid the foundation. Already. That's remarkable progress." His lips quirked in a half-smile. "I'm motivated." They walked to the construction site where the outline of the new building was indeed visible, larger than the previous structure, with what appeared to be an additional room. "What's that area there?" Olivia asked, pointing. "Library," Nathan explained. "You mentioned wanting more books, thought they deserved their own space." Touched by his attention to her wishes, Olivia turned to him. "Thank you, that's incredibly thoughtful." "Don't sound so surprised," he teased, but there was warmth in his eyes. "I spoke with Nicholas Nash about you," she admitted. Nathan's expression closed off immediately. "Did you now? Let me guess, he painted me as some sort of war criminal." "He mentioned an incident with a Cheyenne camp." The muscle in Nathan's jaw ticked. "Of course he did." "Is it true?" Olivia pressed gently. Nathan stared at the half-built foundation for a long moment. "War doesn't end cleanly, Olivia. Not for the men who fought it, not for the people caught in its path. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." His eyes met hers, filled with a complexity of emotion that made her heart ache. "Some stories aren't mine alone to tell." Before Olivia could respond, she spotted a group of riders approaching the town. Reese Dalton and his men, their horses kicking up mud from the rain-soaked street. Nathan noticed them too, his posture instantly alert. "You should get back to the school." "Why? What do they want?" "Nothing good." He placed a hand on her elbow, guiding her away from the construction site. "Go back to your students, Olivia. Stay there until I come for you." "Nathan, please," he said, and the urgency in his voice convinced her. Olivia hurried back to the town hall, glancing over her shoulder to see Nathan walking purposefully toward the saloon where Dalton and his men had dismounted. An uneasy feeling settled in her stomach as she gathered her waiting students inside. The afternoon dragged by, Olivia finding it difficult to concentrate on the lesson. When the final bell rang, she hesitated to dismiss the class, unsure if the situation in town had resolved. Her answer came in the form of Nicholas Nash, who appeared at the doorway just as she was preparing to release the children. "Everyone straight home," he instructed the students. "No lingering in town today." The children, sensing the seriousness in his tone, obeyed without the usual protests. When the last one had gone, Nicholas turned to Olivia. "You all right?" "Yes," she nodded, "though I'm not entirely sure what's happening." Nicholas ran a hand through his hair, looking weary. "Dalton and his men came looking for Novak. Old business, apparently. What kind of business? The kind that involves guns, he said grimly. I managed to convince them to take it outside town limits. Alarm shot through Olivia. Nathan went with them. Willingly. Said it was the only way to settle it once and for all. Nicholas's expression was unreadable. Didn't want trouble in town. And you let him go. Olivia couldn't keep the accusation from her voice. Several men against one. It wasn't my decision to make, Nicholas said, echoing her own words from the previous day. And Novak can handle himself. What if they kill him? Something flickered in Nicholas's eyes, concern, perhaps, or regret. I sent 2 of my deputies to follow at a distance. If things get out of hand, they'll intervene. This provided little comfort to Olivia. When will you know what happened? Soon, I expect. One way or another. He offered his arm. Come on, I'll take you back to the boarding house. Olivia hesitated. I'd rather wait for news. Nicholas sighed. It could be hours, Olivia. Then I'll wait hours. She straightened her spine, determination filling her. I'll stay here in the town hall if you prefer, but I want to know what happens. After a moment's consideration, Nicholas nodded. All right, but not here. Come to my office. It's more comfortable, and that's where word will come first. The marshal's office was sparse but neat, with a desk, a few chairs, and cells in the back currently empty of occupants. Olivia sat stiffly in a chair while Nicholas busied himself making coffee. He didn't tell you anything about Dalton? Nicholas asked after a period of silence. Only that they were acquainted, and that trouble follows men like him. A dry chuckle escaped Nicholas. He got that right, at least. You 2 were friends once, Olivia observed, during the war. Nicholas paused in stirring the coffee. Yes, we were. What happened? He brought her a cup before answering. Differences of opinion on how to follow orders, on what constitutes necessary action. The Cheyenne camp. Nicholas nodded grimly. We were told to clear the area. The commanding officer meant for us to move them to a reservation, but some men. They took the order differently. Nathan, he tried to stop it, Nicholas said quietly, surprising her, when he realized what was happening, but by then. Olivia's heart clenched. Then why do you distrust him so much now? Because afterward he disappeared, didn't testify at the inquiry. Left me to face the questions alone. Bitterness crept into Nicholas's voice. And now he shows up here, years later, with men like Dalton on his trail. Before Olivia could respond, the door burst open. One of Nicholas's deputies stood there, breathing hard. Marshal, you better come quick. There's been shooting out at Cottonwood Creek. Nicholas was on his feet instantly. Anyone hurt? Don't know yet. Thompson's still out there. I came back for you. Nicholas grabbed his rifle. Stay here, he told Olivia firmly. I mean it this time. Lock the door behind me. And then he was gone, leaving Olivia alone with her racing thoughts and growing fear. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Olivia paced the small office, alternating between worry and anger at Nathan for riding off to face danger, at Nicholas for letting him go, at herself for caring so much about 2 men she barely knew. Night had fallen when she heard footsteps on the wooden walkway outside. She grabbed the nearest weapon, a letter opener from Nicholas's desk, and positioned herself beside the door. Olivia, Nicholas's voice called. It's me. She quickly unlocked the door, relief washing over her at the sight of him, muddy and tired but unharmed. What happened? Is Nathan? He's alive, Nicholas confirmed, stepping inside. Took a bullet to the shoulder, but Doc Harris says he'll recover. And Dalton won't be troubling anyone again. Nicholas's expression was grim. 2 of his men as well, the rest scattered. Olivia sank into a chair, the tension draining from her body. Thank God. Nicholas studied her reaction with a complicated expression. You care for him. It wasn't a question, but Olivia answered anyway. I barely know him. Either of you, really. Sometimes that doesn't matter, Nicholas said quietly. Sometimes you just know. Their eyes met, and Olivia felt a current of understanding pass between them. Can I see him? Nathan, Nicholas looked away. He's at Doc Harris's place, resting. But yes, I suppose you can visit tomorrow. Thank you. She stood, suddenly aware of how late it was. I should get back to the boarding house. Mrs. Wilkins will be worried. I'll walk you. The night air was cool and clear, stars brilliantly visible in the vast western sky. They walked in silence, both lost in their own thoughts until they reached the boarding house. Nicholas, Olivia said as they stopped at the porch, thank you for going after them, for making sure Nathan wasn't alone. He looked at her for a long moment. Get some rest, Olivia. It's been a long day. The next morning, Olivia rose early and headed straight to the doctor's house after breakfast. Dr. Harris, a kindly older man with spectacles perched on his nose, led her to a back room where Nathan lay on a narrow bed, his shoulder bandaged. He lost some blood, but the bullet went clean through, the doctor explained. Fever's down this morning, which is a good sign. Don't tire him out. Nathan's eyes were closed, his face paler than usual but peaceful in sleep. Olivia sat quietly beside the bed, not wanting to disturb him. After a few minutes, his eyelids fluttered open. Didn't expect to see an angel today, he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Relief flooded through Olivia. How are you feeling? Like I've been shot. A weak smile curved his lips. Not my first time, though. That's hardly reassuring, she chided gently. What were you thinking, going off to face those men alone? Nathan's expression sobered. They wouldn't have stopped coming. Better to end it on my terms. By getting yourself killed, by protecting what matters. His eyes held hers. This town. The schoolhouse. You. The simple declaration made Olivia's heart skip. Nathan. Reese Dalton wasn't just some random outlaw, he explained, wincing as he shifted position. He worked for a man named Victor Hammond, mining magnate, owns half the territory, including the mine here in Redemption Creek. What does he want with you? Nathan's eyes darkened. I used to work for him. After the war, when I needed money and didn't ask questions about the jobs, until I realized what kind of man he was. And what kind is that? The kind who burns down schoolhouses because educated workers might demand fair wages. Nathan's voice hardened. The kind who hires men to intimidate townsfolk who stand against him. The kind who doesn't take kindly to former employees who know too much. Understanding dawned on Olivia. You came to Redemption Creek on purpose, to stop him. I came because I heard they needed someone to rebuild a schoolhouse, he corrected. Staying to face Hammond's men was an unplanned necessity. Is it over now, with Dalton gone? Nathan's laugh held no humor. Hammond's got plenty more men, but he'll be more cautious now, knowing I'm prepared to fight back. The door opened and Nicholas entered, his expression guarded as he took in the scene. Miss Armstrong, Novak, Marshal, Nathan acknowledged, come to arrest me for disturbing the peace. Thought about it, Nicholas replied, though there was less hostility in his tone than usual. But considering you took those men out of town before shooting started, I suppose I can overlook it this time. An awkward silence fell, and Olivia stood. I should let you rest, Nathan. I have class to prepare for anyway. Wait, Nathan caught her hand. The schoolhouse. The men will need direction while I'm recovering. I'll handle it, Nicholas surprised them both by saying. Got the plans from your foreman this morning. Nathan's eyebrows rose. Didn't know you had carpentry skills, Nash. There's a lot you don't know about me, Nicholas replied, but without the usual edge to his words. Rest up, Novak. Town needs that schoolhouse finished. As Olivia and Nicholas left the doctor's house, she gave him a sideways glance. That was almost civil. A reluctant smile tugged at Nicholas's lips. Don't get used to it. He told me about Victor Hammond, about the schoolhouse fire. Nicholas's expression darkened. Hammond's been a thorn in my side since I became marshal. Can't prove he's behind half the trouble in town, but I know it's him. And you didn't tell me this because... Didn't want to frighten you, he admitted. Thought you might leave if you knew. They paused at the corner where their paths would diverge. Olivia to the town hall, Nicholas to the construction site. You still want to go to Denver next week? He asked. For the school supplies. The question reminded Olivia of all that had happened since he'd first extended the invitation. Yes, she said firmly. The children need books, and I refuse to let men like Hammond dictate what I do. Approval flashed in Nicholas's eyes. That's settled then. We leave Wednesday. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Olivia taught during the day, visited Nathan in the evenings as he recovered, and watched with interest as Nicholas supervised the schoolhouse construction with surprising competence. The two men maintained a wary truce, united temporarily by their shared goal of completing the building. By Tuesday, Nathan was well enough to leave the doctor's care, though his arm remained in a sling. He insisted on returning to the construction site, where he offered guidance while Nicholas and the other workers did the physical labor. You two working together, Olivia commented when she stopped by after school. I never thought I'd see it. Temporary insanity, Nathan quipped, though there was less bite to his words than before. Nash isn't half bad with a hammer, I'll give him that. Nicholas, overhearing, gave a grudging nod. Novak's design is solid. School will be twice as sturdy as the old one. The day before their planned trip to Denver, Olivia was packing a small valise when Mrs. Wilkins entered her room, looking troubled. There's someone downstairs to see you, dear. A gentleman from the mining company. Unease flickered through Olivia, but she maintained a calm demeanor as she descended the stairs. In the parlor stood a well-dressed man in his 50s, his silver hair and tailored suit marking him as someone of means. Miss Armstrong, he greeted with a practiced smile. Victor Hammond. I own the Redemption Creek Mining Company. Olivia's blood ran cold, but she extended her hand politely. Mr. Hammond, this is an unexpected visit. I've heard much about the new teacher who's making such changes in our little town, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Rebuilding the schoolhouse, planning educational excursions to Denver. Most impressive. The way he knew her plans sent a chill down her spine. Education benefits everyone, Mr. Hammond, including your workers. Indeed. He walked to the window, looking out at the town. I've always supported progress, Miss Armstrong. In fact, I'd like to make a donation to your school, say $500, for books and supplies. The sum was substantial, far more than the town council had allocated. That's very generous. I believe in investing in the future, Hammond said, turning back to her. Of course, I'd want some input on the curriculum, ensuring practical skills are emphasized, mining safety, basic engineering. Things that would help young men secure good positions with my company. And there it was the catch. Education should prepare children for all opportunities, Mr. Hammond, not just mining. His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. But in a town like Redemption Creek, the mine is the primary employer. It would be impractical to encourage unrealistic ambitions. I find nothing impractical about teaching children to read literature, understand history, or appreciate art, Olivia replied evenly. Hammond studied her for a long moment. You remind me of someone, a young man who once worked for me, idealistic, principled, until he learned that principles don't pay the bills. Nathan Novak, Olivia said, meeting his gaze steadily. Ah, so he's mentioned me. Hammond's smile didn't reach his eyes. Did he tell you how he enforced my policies before his change of heart, how efficient he was? People change, Mr. Hammond. Do they? He reached for his hat. I wonder. The West is an unforgiving place, Miss Armstrong. Men like Novak, like your Marshal Nash, they understand that survival sometimes requires compromise. Is that a threat? Hammond looked genuinely surprised. A threat? My dear, I came to offer financial support. If you prefer to struggle with the town's meager resources, that's entirely your choice. He moved toward the door. Think about my offer. The children of Redemption Creek deserve the best education possible, don't you agree? After he left, Olivia sank into a chair, her hands trembling slightly. The encounter left her with a profound sense of unease, Hammond's seemingly benign offer masking something far more sinister. She debated whether to tell Nathan or Nicholas about the visit. Both men had warned her about Hammond, but sharing this information might provoke them to action that could be dangerous given Hammond's resources and influence. In the end, she decided to wait until after the Denver trip. Hammond had made no explicit threats, and she didn't want to disrupt the fragile peace that had formed between Nathan and Nicholas. The stagecoach departed early Wednesday morning with Olivia, Nicholas, and 3 other passengers, a traveling salesman and an elderly couple returning to Denver after visiting their daughter. The journey would take nearly 2 full days, with an overnight stop at a way station. As Redemption Creek faded into the distance, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The past weeks had been intense, filled with unexpected dangers and complicated emotions. The chance to step away, even briefly, was welcome. You're quiet, Nicholas observed as the coach bounced along the rutted trail. Just enjoying the scenery, she replied, though in truth, the landscape of scrubby plains and distant mountains was not what occupied her thoughts. Nicholas seemed to sense her preoccupation. Something happened before we left. What was it? Olivia hesitated, then decided honesty was best. Victor Hammond paid me a visit yesterday. Nicholas's expression darkened. What did he want? To offer money for the school, with conditions, of course. Of course, Nicholas muttered. What did you tell him? That education shouldn't be limited to what benefits his mind. Olivia sighed. He mentioned Nathan, said they had history. Nicholas was quiet for a moment, watching the landscape roll by. Hammond uses men like Novak, men with skills and few options after the war. Gets them to do his dirty work, keeps them loyal with good pay and the promise of respectability. But Nathan left. Yes. Nicholas's voice held a note of grudging respect. One of the few who did. Most are too deep in Hammond's pocket to break free. Is that what you meant about the Cheyenne camp? That Nathan was following orders? Nicholas's jaw tightened. No, that was different, military. Hammond, he's about power and profit, pure and simple. The conversation lulled as the coach hit a particularly rough stretch of road. When they spoke again, it was of lighter matters, the books Olivia hoped to find in Denver, the supplies needed for the nearly completed schoolhouse. By late afternoon, they reached the way station, a sturdy log building with a stable for fresh horses and basic accommodations for travelers. The elderly couple and the salesman continued on with the stage to the next stop, while Olivia and Nicholas had arranged to stay overnight. The station keeper's wife, Mrs. Holloway, showed Olivia to a small but clean room. Dinner's at 6, she informed her. Nothing fancy but hot and filling. Dinner indeed proved simple but satisfying: beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie for dessert. Olivia and Nicholas ate at a rough-hewn table in the main room, joined by the station keeper and his wife. Not many folks travel this route these days, Mr. Holloway commented. Stage runs half empty most times. Railroads changing everything, Nicholas agreed. Soon enough these coach routes will be memories. Progress, Mrs. Holloway sighed. Can't stop it, I suppose. After dinner, Nicholas and Mr. Holloway stepped outside to smoke while Olivia helped Mrs. Holloway clear the dishes. "You and the marshal make a handsome couple," the older woman observed with a smile. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Oh, we're not. That is, Marshal Nash is accompanying me on official business. For the school." Mrs. Holloway raised an eyebrow. "If you say so, dear. But I've been watching folks pass through here for 20 years. I know that look." "What look?" Olivia asked, flustered. "The way he watches you when you're not looking," Mrs. Holloway said simply. "Like a man who's found something he didn't know he was searching for." Later, unable to sleep in the unfamiliar bed, Olivia wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped onto the small porch. The night was clear, stars scattered like diamonds across the vast expanse of sky. She'd never seen stars like this in Boston, where city lights and smoke dimmed their brilliance. "Couldn't sleep?" Nicholas's voice startled her. He sat in a chair at the far end of the porch, barely visible in the darkness. "It's so quiet out here," Olivia said, moving to join him. "In Boston, there's always some sound: carriages, people, ships in the harbor." "Takes getting used to," Nicholas agreed. "The silence out here can be louder than any city noise." They sat in comfortable quiet for a while, listening to the subtle sounds of the prairie night, the distant howl of a coyote, the rustle of wind through scrub grass. "When we return," Nicholas said eventually, "things might be different." "How so?" "Hammond won't take your rejection well. He'll make another move." Olivia wrapped her shawl tighter. "I'm not afraid of him." "You should be," Nicholas said, but there was admiration in his voice. "He's dangerous, but so are we. We, Novak and I." Nicholas turned to look at her, his face half illuminated by starlight. "We may have our differences, but we agree on one thing: protecting what matters in Redemption Creek." The way he said it made Olivia wonder if he was speaking about more than just the town. "You two were close once." Nicholas nodded slowly. "Like brothers. War does that, forges bonds stronger than blood." "What really happened?" "With the Cheyenne camp?" For a long moment, Olivia thought he wouldn't answer. Then softly he began to speak. "We were ordered to relocate a group that had left the reservation. Routine mission. But when we arrived, the captain, a man named Mercer, gave different orders. Said they were hostile, dangerous. Ordered us to make an example." Nicholas's voice tightened. "Most of the men followed orders without question. Novak and I, we tried to stop it, but we were too late for most of them. Managed to help a few escape, women and children mostly. After, there was an inquiry. Mercer claimed we'd been attacked first, that it was self-defense. Novak disappeared before testifying, left me to face it alone." "Why would he do that?" Nicholas shrugged. "Never knew. By the time the inquiry ended, he was gone. Next I heard, he was working for men like Hammond, using the skills the army taught him for private gain. Until he stopped," Olivia pointed out gently. "Until he chose a different path. Maybe." Nicholas sounded unconvinced. "Or maybe he's playing a longer game. Hard to know with Novak." "You don't really believe that," Olivia said. "If you did, you wouldn't be helping with the schoolhouse, wouldn't have sent deputies to watch his back with Dalton." Nicholas was silent for a long moment. "Perhaps you're right. Perhaps I want to believe he's still the man I once knew." Their conversation drifted to lighter topics as the night deepened. Olivia found herself sharing stories of her life in Boston, her father's academic pursuits, her own dreams of making a difference through education. Nicholas, usually so reserved, spoke of his family's ranch in Wyoming Territory, his decision to become a lawman after the war, his hopes for Redemption Creek's future. When Olivia finally returned to her room, dawn was beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Despite the lack of sleep, she felt more at peace than she had in weeks. They reached Denver by nightfall the next day, securing rooms at a modest hotel near the commercial district. The city, while small compared to Boston, seemed bustling and cosmopolitan after the quiet of Redemption Creek. The following morning, they visited a bookstore where Olivia selected readers, arithmetic primers, and history texts for her students. Nicholas arranged for the purchases to be shipped back to Redemption Creek, then suggested they visit a supply merchant for slates, chalk, and other necessary items. By midday, their business was nearly complete. As they sat in a small cafe for lunch, Olivia found herself reluctant to return to the stagecoach for the journey home. "Would it be terribly irresponsible to suggest we stay another night?" she asked. "There's a lecture at the Athenaeum this evening on modern educational methods that I'd love to attend." Nicholas smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that transformed his serious face. "I think Redemption Creek can spare us for one more day." The lecture proved fascinating, though Olivia suspected Nicholas found it less engaging than she did. Still, he listened attentively, occasionally asking insightful questions that surprised both her and the lecturer. Afterward, as they walked back to their hotel through Denver's gas-lit streets, Nicholas offered his arm. Olivia took it, acutely aware of his solid presence beside her. "Thank you for coming with me tonight," she said. "I know educational theory isn't everyone's preferred evening entertainment." "I enjoyed it," he said, and she believed him. "Reminded me of my father. He was a great believer in education, wanted all his children to have opportunities he never had. He sounds like a wise man." He was. A shadow crossed Nicholas's face. "Died in '63. Fever took him while I was away fighting." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "It's hard, isn't it, not being there to say goodbye?" Nicholas glanced at her. "You speak from experience." "My father," she nodded. "I was teaching at a girls' school in Connecticut when word came. By the time I reached Boston, he was already gone." They walked in understanding silence for a while. When they reached the hotel, Nicholas paused at the foot of the stairs that led to their respective rooms. "Olivia," he began, then hesitated. "These past days away from Redemption Creek. It's been—" "I know," she said, saving him from finding the words. "For me too." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Olivia felt the world narrow to just the two of them, this complicated man with his sense of duty and hidden gentleness, and herself, so far from the life she'd once known. Nicholas leaned forward slowly, giving her time to step back if she wished. Instead, Olivia lifted her face to his, and their lips met in a kiss that was both questioning and certain. When they parted, Nicholas looked at her with wonder. "I didn't come to Redemption Creek looking for this." "Nor did I," Olivia admitted. "But here we are." He touched her cheek gently. "Here we are indeed." They returned to Redemption Creek 2 days later, the stagecoach laden with educational supplies and a new understanding between them. As the familiar buildings came into view, Olivia felt both a sense of homecoming and trepidation. The peaceful interlude in Denver seemed far removed from the tensions awaiting them. Nicholas must have sensed her thoughts. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we face it together." The coach pulled up outside the town hall, where a small crowd had gathered. To Olivia's surprise, Nathan stood among them, his arm still in a sling but his color much improved. "Welcome back," he called as Nicholas helped Olivia down from the coach. His eyes took in their closeness, a flicker of something disappointment, perhaps, or resignation crossing his face before his usual confident expression returned. "The schoolhouse is finished," he announced. "Thought you might want to see it before settling in." Olivia couldn't contain her excitement. "Really? It's complete?" "Every last nail," Nathan confirmed, a hint of pride in his voice. "Town turned out to help after you left. Seems education's becoming a priority in Redemption Creek." Nicholas looked skeptical. "Hammond didn't cause any trouble." A shadow crossed Nathan's face. Not directly, but his influence is felt. The mine reduced shifts again, laid off 20 men. Retaliation, Nicholas muttered. Most likely. Nathan turned to Olivia. But that's a concern for another day. Right now you have a schoolhouse to inspect. The new building exceeded Olivia's expectations. Larger than the original, it featured the promised library area, large windows that flooded the space with natural light, and solid oak desks and benches built by the town's carpenter. "It's perfect," she breathed, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "I can't believe you finished it so quickly." "Had good help," Nathan said with a nod toward Nicholas, who knew the marshal had hidden talents. Nicholas returned the nod, the gesture carrying the weight of a truce extended and accepted. Good design makes the work easier. The three of them stood in the empty schoolhouse, an unusual tableau. Two men who had once been brothers in arms, now rivals in some ways and allies in others, and the woman whose arrival had catalyzed changes none of them could have predicted. The moment was broken by the arrival of Mrs. Wilkins and several other townspeople, eager to see Olivia's reaction to the new building. Soon the schoolhouse was filled with voices and laughter as children explored the space that would become their educational home. Later that evening, Olivia sat on the boarding house porch, enjoying the cool evening air after the day's excitement. Footsteps on the wooden walkway announced a visitor, Nathan, his tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Olivia gestured to the empty chair beside her. "Please do." He sat with the careful movements of a man still healing, though his eyes were clear and alert. "You seem happy," he observed. "I am," she admitted. "The schoolhouse is everything I could have hoped for, and Denver was enlightening." A smile tugged at Nathan's lips. "I imagine it was." His gaze was knowing, not accusatory. Nash is a good man when he remembers to be. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Nathan, he held up his hand. "No explanations needed. I saw it from the beginning, the way you two circled each other. Like planets finding their orbit." "I never meant to hurt you," she said softly. "You haven't," he assured her. "Disappointed me, perhaps, but not hurt me. There's a difference." They sat in silence for a moment, the space between them comfortable despite the complexity of their situation. "I came to say goodbye," Nathan said finally. "I'm leaving Redemption Creek." This surprised Olivia. "Because of us?" "No," he chuckled. "Though that would make for a more dramatic exit, wouldn't it?" His expression sobered. "Hammond's reach is long. After what happened with Dalton, he'll send others. Better if I'm not here when they come." "You're running," Olivia said, disappointment coloring her tone. "Tactical retreat," Nathan corrected. "Hammond wants me. If I stay, the town, the school, you become targets to get to me." "So you're just giving up? After everything you've built here?" Nathan looked at her intently. "I'm not giving up, Olivia. I'm taking the fight elsewhere. Hammond has operations all over the territory, vulnerable points," understanding dawned. "You're going after his business." "Someone has to stand against men like him," Nathan said simply. "Might as well be someone who knows how he operates." "Does Nicholas know?" "We've talked." Nathan's expression was unreadable. "He understands the strategy, even if he doesn't like my methods." Olivia shook her head, smiling despite herself. "You two, so different yet so alike." "That's why we made good partners once," Nathan acknowledged, "and why we make better allies now than enemies." The front door opened and Mrs. Wilkins poked her head out. "Olivia, dear, supper's on the table." "Mr. Novak, you're welcome to join us." "Thank you, madam, but I have preparations to make," Nathan declined politely. He stood, wincing slightly at the movement. "Walk me to the gate." At the small gate that separated the boarding house yard from the street, Nathan turned to Olivia. "I meant what I said about being happy for you and Nash." He needs someone like you, someone who sees beyond the badge to the man wearing it. And what about you? Olivia asked. What do you need, Nathan? His smile held a touch of sadness. Purpose. Direction. I lost those after the war. Found them again here, thanks in part to you. Will you come back when it's safe? Perhaps. He took her hand, pressing it briefly. Take care of this town, Olivia Armstrong. It needs you more than it knows. With that, he released her hand, tipped his hat, and walked away into the gathering darkness. Olivia watched until his figure disappeared, feeling both a sense of loss and a curious lightness. Nathan Novak had entered her life like a sudden storm, intense and transformative, but it was Nicholas Nash who had become her steady horizon. The next morning, Olivia began teaching in the new schoolhouse. Word of Nathan's departure had spread through town, met with mixed reactions: regret from those who had come to respect his skills and character, relief from those who associated him with the recent violence. Nicholas stopped by at noon, bringing a package that had arrived on the morning stage. Books from Denver, he explained. Thought you'd want them right away. As the children explored the new volumes during their lunch break, Nicholas pulled Olivia aside. Hammond's in town, called a meeting with the town council for this evening. Anxiety flickered through her. About the school. Among other things, he's proposing to expand the mine, claims it will bring more jobs. Nicholas's expression was grim. But there's a catch: he wants control of the town water rights. Can he do that? Not without council approval. Nicholas ran a hand through his hair. Problem is, 3 of the 5 council members owe their livelihoods to the mine. So he'll likely get what he wants, Olivia concluded, unless we can convince them otherwise. Nicholas looked at her thoughtfully. The meeting's open to all townsfolk. Your voice might carry weight. You're respected here now, Olivia. That evening, the town hall was packed with residents curious about Hammond's proposals. The mining magnate himself sat at the front, immaculately dressed and exuding confidence as he outlined his plans for expansion. Prosperity, he concluded smoothly, is what I offer Redemption Creek. More jobs, higher wages, a future for your children right here rather than forcing them to seek opportunities elsewhere. The mayor, a nervous man with thinning hair, thanked Hammond for his presentation. Now, regarding the matter of water rights. A mere formality, Hammond interjected. To ensure the mine has the resources it needs to operate efficiently, the town's supply won't be affected. From the back of the room, a voice called out. That's not what happened in Silver Ridge. They gave you water rights, and within a year the town well was dry. Hammond's smile tightened. An unfortunate circumstance, geological factors beyond our control. And what about Eden Creek? Another voice challenged. Mine tailings in their water, children getting sick. Rumors and exaggerations, Hammond dismissed. If I may continue. Mr. Hammond, Olivia stood, her voice clear and steady. You spoke of prosperity and opportunity, of a future for our children. As the town's teacher, I share those goals. Hammond's expression was cautiously neutral. I'm glad to hear it, Miss Armstrong. But prosperity isn't measured solely in wages, she continued. It's measured in clean water, in healthy children, in a community that determines its own destiny rather than surrendering it to outside interests. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The school represents Redemption Creek's investment in its own future, Olivia said, gaining confidence as she spoke. If the town surrenders its water, rights its most precious resource, what message does that send to the children? We're trying to educate about self-reliance and foresight. Hammond's face darkened, but he maintained his composure. Miss Armstrong speaks eloquently but perhaps lacks practical experience in these matters. Mining requires water. Without the mine, Redemption Creek is just another dying frontier town. Not true, Nicholas stepped forward. The valley to the south is fertile grazing land. The river provides irrigation possibilities. There's talk of the railroad coming through within 5 years. Speculative ventures, Hammond scoffed. The mine offers certainty. Until the ore runs out, Nicholas countered. And then you'll move on, leaving us with depleted resources and a generation of men who know nothing but mining. The debate continued for hours, passionate and sometimes heated. Olivia watched in amazement as townspeople who had rarely spoken at public meetings found their voices, asking pointed questions about Hammond's proposals and sharing concerns about the future. By the end, it was clear that opinion had shifted. The council voted 3-2 against granting the water rights, with one of Hammond's presumed supporters unexpectedly changing sides. Hammond's mask of congeniality slipped as the vote was announced. He gathered his papers with barely controlled anger. "You're making a grave mistake," he told the council. "This town needs the mine more than the mine needs this town." As the meeting dispersed, Nicholas found Olivia in the crowd. "You were magnificent," he said, his eyes shining with admiration. "Changed the whole direction of the debate." "We all did," she corrected, gesturing to the townsfolk still discussing the meeting in excited clusters. "They just needed permission to question, to imagine a different future." Nicholas glanced toward Hammond, who was engaged in intense conversation with several men near the door. "This isn't over. He doesn't take defeat well. Then we'll face whatever comes next," Olivia said firmly. Together. The following weeks proved Nicholas right. Hammond's defeat at the town meeting was merely the opening skirmish in a longer campaign. The mine reduced operations further, laying off more workers. Supplies at the general store became erratic, with the owner claiming delivery problems. The stagecoach schedule changed, making travel to and from Redemption Creek more difficult. Through it all, Olivia continued teaching, adapting to each new challenge with determination. The school became a center of community life, hosting not just children during the day but adult education classes in the evenings, reading for those who had never learned, basic bookkeeping, agricultural techniques shared by experienced farmers. Nicholas supported her efforts while dealing with increased tensions in town, as unemployed miners struggled to find new work. He organized a town watch, enlisted volunteers to help repair irrigation ditches that mysteriously broke, and maintained communication with neighboring settlements facing similar pressures from Hammond's enterprises. Word came occasionally of Nathan Novak's sightings in mining camps where workers were organizing for better conditions. Rumors of sabotaged equipment at Hammond operations. Stories of a black-clad stranger helping families displaced by the company's expansions. "He's fighting his own way," Nicholas commented when Olivia shared the latest news. "Never could do things by the book." "You miss him," Olivia observed. Nicholas considered this. "Parts of him. The loyalty, the certainty. Even when I disagreed with his methods, I never doubted his conviction." Their relationship deepened as they faced these challenges together. Nicholas, once so guarded, opened himself to Olivia more each day. She discovered his dry humor, his unexpected knowledge of literature. His mother had been a schoolteacher. His gentle way with children despite his imposing presence. On a crisp autumn evening, as golden leaves drifted from the cottonwoods that lined the creek, Nicholas took Olivia for a walk beyond the town limits. They stopped at a ridge overlooking the valley, painted in the rich hues of sunset. "I've been thinking," he said, uncharacteristically hesitant. "About the future, about us." Olivia's heart quickened. "Have you, this land here?" He gestured to the sloping hillside below them. "It's mine, 20 acres, Bought it when I first came to Redemption Creek, thinking someday I might build a home. It's beautiful, Olivia said truthfully. The location was perfect, close enough to town for convenience, far enough for privacy, with views of both the mountains and the valley. Nicholas turned to her, taking both her hands in his. I'm not a man of fancy words, Olivia, but these past months, knowing you, loving you, it's changed everything for me. Nicholas, she whispered, her voice catching. I want to build that home now, he continued, for us, if you'll have me, if you'll be my wife. Joy bubbled up within her, bright and irrepressible. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll be your wife. He gathered her in his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that belied his strength. When they finally parted, both breathless, Nicholas pressed his forehead to hers. I never expected this when you stepped off that stagecoach, he admitted. Never thought I'd find someone who made me want more than just doing my duty each day. Nor did I expect to find a home and a heart to belong to when I came west, Olivia replied. Life has a way of surprising us. They were married in the church on a bright October day, with the whole town turning out to celebrate. Mrs. Wilkins wept openly, declaring she'd known from the first day that they were meant for each other. The schoolchildren presented their teacher with a handmade quilt, each square representing something they'd learned from her. Construction on their house began immediately, with volunteers from town helping to raise the frame before winter set in. Nicholas proved as skilled in building as he was in maintaining the law, working alongside the men whenever his duties allowed. As the first snows dusted the mountains, news came that changed the balance of power in the region. Hammond's mining empire was crumbling, investors withdrawing after revelations of unsafe conditions, government investigations into land acquisition practices, worker strikes at multiple locations. Novak's handiwork, Nicholas said, when they read the newspaper accounts. He always did know how to find pressure points. The Redemption Creek mine reopened under new management, a cooperative formed by former workers with backing from Denver businessmen who saw opportunity in Hammond's fall. The new arrangement included profit sharing for miners and strict environmental protections for the creek and surrounding lands. Spring brought the completion of their home, a solid 2-story structure with a wide porch facing the valley and plenty of room for the family they hoped to create. As they moved their few possessions from town, a rider approached on the road from the east. Nicholas spotted him first, shading his eyes against the morning sun. Well, I'll be damned. Nathan Novak dismounted at their gate, looking leaner and more weathered than when he'd left, but with the same confident bearing. Heard there was a house raising. Thought I might be late to the party. Only by about 6 months, Nicholas replied, but there was no rancor in his tone. He extended his hand. Good to see you in one piece, Novak. Likewise, Nash. Nathan shook his hand, then turned to Olivia with a warm smile. Mrs. Nash now, I hear. Congratulations. Thank you, Olivia said, genuinely pleased to see him. And thank you for what you've done with Hammond. Nathan shrugged. Just evening the odds a bit. He had too many advantages for too long. Come inside, Nicholas invited. We were about to have coffee. As they sat in the bright new kitchen, Nathan shared stories of his months away, the network of allies he'd built across the territory, the evidence he'd gathered of Hammond's corrupt practices, the communities beginning to reclaim their resources and independence. What will you do now? Olivia asked. With Hammond's influence diminished, Nathan looked thoughtful. There's still work to be done. Other Hammonds out there, different names but same methods. Always another fight, Nicholas observed. For now, Nathan's expression softened. But I've been thinking it might be time to put down roots somewhere, start building instead of just tearing down. Redemption Creek could use a man with your skills, Nicholas said. Town's growing again, new businesses opening. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You offering me a job, Marshal? More like extending an invitation to a friend. The two men looked at each other, years of complex history between them, but also the possibility of a new understanding. I'll consider it, Nathan said finally. Got some loose ends to tie up first. But it might be nice to stay in one place for a while. As they walked him to his horse later, Olivia impulsively hugged Nathan. Whatever you decide, you'll always have friends here. I know, he said softly. That's worth coming back for. They watched him ride away, his figure gradually diminishing in the distance. Think he'll return? Olivia asked. Nicholas slipped his arm around her waist. Yes, when he's ready, when he's made peace with his past just as I have. And what about us? Olivia leaned into his embrace. What does our future hold, Nicholas Nash? He smiled down at her, love evident in every line of his face. Everything we make of it. A home, a family, a town that keeps growing stronger. And no regrets, she asked, thinking of the path not taken, the might-have-beens. None, he said firmly, drawing her closer. Every step led us here, Olivia. Every choice, every challenge, and I wouldn't change a single one. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across their new home, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment, from a Boston teacher seeking adventure to a woman who had found her place in the vast, wild landscape of the West. She thought of her first day in Redemption Creek, of Nathan Novak in the saloon, of Nicholas Nash's protective instincts, of a schoolhouse rising from ashes, of a community finding its voice. I love you, she said simply, the words carrying all the certainty of her heart. And I love you, Nicholas replied, sealing the promise with a kiss. In the distance, the town of Redemption Creek glowed with evening lights, a beacon of possibility in the gathering dusk. Their town, their future, built by choice, defended by courage, sustained by love. 5 years later, Olivia stood on the porch of their home, watching as Nicholas taught their 4-year-old son to ride his first pony in the paddock near the barn. Their 2-year-old daughter played at her feet, arranging pebbles in patterns only she understood. The town below had grown new buildings, new faces, a sense of permanence that had once seemed impossible. The school now had 3 teachers besides Olivia, who served as headmistress while balancing her family responsibilities. A rider approached up the long drive, and Olivia smiled in recognition. Nathan Novak, now a regular visitor, had settled in a neighboring valley where he raised horses and, rumor had it, was courting the widow who owned the town's newest restaurant. Life had found its rhythm, its purpose. The challenges hadn't ended. The West was still wild in many ways, still demanding resilience and adaptability. But they faced each day together, building something stronger with each sunset and sunrise. As Nicholas lifted their laughing son from the pony and headed toward the house, Olivia thought of that pivotal moment years ago, a moment of rejection and promise, of closing and opening. Don't stay, he had said, protecting his heart, his town. Then I'll wait outside till you let me in, she had answered, believing in possibilities yet to unfold. And here they were, doors and hearts wide open, home at last.